This is TWiT.
There's been a bunch of things that happened recently. I've been sort of reading up on the video game industry for various reasons. I read this book about Gabe Newell that was terrible, but he's an interesting person. And I went back to some older books I'd bought like a million years ago. Like there was a book about Nintendo and I'm just anticipating some things down the line. But I came across something where I was like, wait a minute. And maybe this is common knowledge, but I just wrote about this. The 30% fee that mobile app stores just kind of do without any reason whatsoever, like literally pulled that number out of the air with no regard to anything, is from Nintendo. And when when 1983, two big things happened. One, the video game crash occurred in the United States, basically killing all of the consoles we had at the time, 2600, 5200, Mattel and Television, ColecoVision, et cetera. That was the end of that. And then we had like a 2 to 4 year time span where nothing happened with video games, basically. And we moved to home computers. But the other thing that happened in 1983 was Nintendo released what we called the NES, the Famicom, in Japan. And it was originally released with just games that Nintendo made. And like to me, in the early 1980s, looking at Nintendo, to me, they were like a B-level kind of second-rate kind of video game company. It was like, they didn't have like Pac-Man, Galaxian, like the good stuff. They had like Donkey Kong, whatever, Popeye. It's like, who cares? But then two of the game companies, including Namco, which made Pac-Man, went to them and said, look, you got to let us make games in this thing. How's that going to work? And they were like, oh. And because the market had just died in the United States, which was the market, they said, well, we can't let that happen again. So too many games, no quality control, no licensing, no anything. It was just third-party developers, in many cases, either left Atari and just knew how to do this stuff or reverse engineered it, whatever it was. A lot of video games, the crash occurred, whatever. So they're like, what do you think we should do? And these two, I can't remember the other one. One was, like I said, was Namco, but I can't remember the other name, the other company. But they basically said, well, you should have a licensing program, and then you could just approve of the games that come out on your system. Also, we're small companies. We can't afford to do this. You could make the games. You could actually physically manufacture them. You could charge us for that. And they were like, okay. So Nintendo and the two companies arrived at a 10% fee for licensing, which sounds like a pretty good fee, by the way, for Apple and Google, I'm just saying. And then the other 20% was physical manufacturing of cartridges, which was expensive, right? And that's where this came from. Sega immediately adopted this. They had a similar system in Japan. They both came to the United States in 1987-ish. And that was the thing. They didn't sell these things as video game consoles. They were like, it's an entertainment system. It's a control center. It's they did everything other than say this plays video games. Look, you can play with a little robot. It's fun. It's for kids, And Sony entered the market, whatever. And this has been the fee structure ever since. And so Apple will never admit this, but when Apple came up with 30%, it wasn't like, well, how much is this costing us? It's like nothing. This is going to be hugely profitable. Like, okay, 30%. Yeah, let's do 30%. So it's Nintendo. So I guess, I don't know if you want to thank Nintendo or if you want to thank the 1983 video game crash, but it is astonishing to me that 40 years later, we are still living with the ramifications of this, right? So we'll see. I think Antitrust will unwind this, but I feel like if Apple or Google had just said, we'll take 10%, we wouldn't even be talking about this now. Like that would be the end of it. No one would care. 10% sounds about right.
Yeah, I don't. They never do mention the fact that the gaming companies are taking 30%, and
this is also part of the story. So yeah, they are. So when people write about antitrust and Apple especially, they'll be like, man, video game companies are going to have to watch out. It's like, why? But why? No, I mean, why? Because it's the same system. Apple has a monopoly,
right,
and also controls a market that is several billion people. Nintendo, I had to write this. I have to look this up because I don't remember this. But like, if you just look at the best-selling console of all time, right, is the PlayStation 2, if I'm not mistaken. The current gen, Nintendo Switch is about to overtake it. This thing has sold fewer than 300 million units over several years. Apple sells that many iPhones in 2 quarters every year.
But I'm sure that's where Apple got the 30%.
I am too. I am too. Yeah. Which was fine when the App Store was small and they weren't in any way dominant and it didn't matter. But Google, like Sega did to Nintendo, just copied it. They have no rationale for it either. Apple's doing it. That's our reason. And, if just look at these companies today, like the best year Nintendo ever had financially was 2020, $16 billion in revenues. Apple's revenues that year were $275 billion, order of magnitude bigger. Last year, they were $390 billion. Apple's profits last year were over $90 billion in each of the past 4 years. Nintendo's highest ever profits were $6 billion. These are completely different markets.
Yeah, it's different. It's a really different category.
Completely different market. That's why antitrust is so important. It's scale. Scale is a big part of it. The market definition is important. If you have a monopoly on like corner markets in some neighborhood, nobody cares. It's too small. But if you have a monopoly in this kind of market, that's serious. That's serious.
So antitrust is such a big part of it, right? Steam also, Valve takes 30%, but Valve can say, hey, we use it to make things people like, and if you don't like it, you can go to Epic and get 10%, but guess what? People love Steam. But Apple market. It's not a competitive market. Even Google can make an argument like, well, people prefer the Play Store to the Amazon App Store. Look what happened to the Amazon App Store. But Apple, obviously you can't get apps from elsewhere.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this little highlight from a much better show and longer too, called Windows Weekly. The whole link to the show is right below me. And of course, we stream live right here every Wednesday. You can watch us do our thing or download it here or in your favorite podcast player. Best thing to do? What do they say? Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.